We'd like to give a big thank you to our sponsor, Northwestern Mutual, Eves Financial Group.
Merry Christmas! I'm Lucinda Eves, and today in Cooking from the Heart in Augusta, we're making Yule logs. So come on in. So for people who may not have heard of a Yule log, the closest things to it in the United States is probably the Little Debbie Swiss cake rolls. Our elf got into them this morning, but it's basically a chocolate cake that's rolled around with some kind of cream filling inside of it. And the reason why we make one here at our house, my husband proposed to me Trip on the Eiffel Tower on Christmas morning. And after we got engaged, we had a Yule log. That was 16 and a half years ago. So every year for Christmas, we make a Yule log in memory of getting engaged. And the European Yule log recipe is a little bit more bitter with not as much sugar, and the chocolate's a little bit darker. So we're trying to change it and make it a little bit more southern, and so I call it instead of a Yule log, a Georgia log. And we try to make more milk chocolate and more sugar in it. So I varied the recipe just a little bit. All right, so first we start with 6 eggs. My dad gave me a little wooden kitchen when I was probably 2 or 3 years old, and that started my love for cooking, and now I'm trying to share it with my children. So you're going to whip this for 5 minutes, and then while that's happening, I'm going to go ahead and get the rest of the ingredients ready that we're going to add to the bowl. Okay, so you beat it for 5 minutes, then you add half a cup of water, and then you add 1/4 cup of oil. And then you add a box of chocolate cake mix. And I use Devil Foods Cake Mix Betty Crocker, but I think this would probably be good. Okay, next you're going to beat on low for 30 seconds, then medium for 1 minute. Okay, next you're going to get a jelly roll pan, which is basically just a cookie sheet with edges. Get some parchment paper and then spray it. And then you're going to do 3.5 cups of batter onto it, and you will have batter. You'll have batter left over, and that's okay. You can make some cupcakes with the leftover batter. So 1. And as I said, this recipe is, a typical recipe for a Yule log. It's not as sweet as Americans are used to, and it's normally dark chocolate and a little bit bitter. So I tweak this recipe every year, and I've been making it for probably 16 years, and I've used influences from all kinds of people, including Pippa Middleton, Kate Middleton's younger sister. She puts brandy in her recipe, so we started doing that. Okay, so after you poured it in, it goes in the oven for 14 to 16 minutes, or when it springs back lightly to the touch. So while that's cooking in the oven, we'll go ahead and start making the filling, which is with whipping cream. You start with 2 cups. Then you put 5 tablespoons of sugar. whip it. Then you whip it until soft peaks form. Okay. So you whip it until soft peaks form, and then you add 3½ tablespoons of brandy. I'm using measuring spoons that I got from my aunt before I went off to college. These have made lots of recipes. Okay, and then you whip it just a little bit more. And now another use for all the cute little Christmas dish towels you have. You lay it out and you sprinkle powdered sugar on top of it, and you want to make about the size of your jelly roll pan. And you're going to flip your Yule log cake out on this, and this is how you roll it up. And this is what it looks like now that it's cooked. And you just get a knife. Since we have the parchment paper in there, it shouldn't stick to the pan. I'm just slicing the two sides. Or I didn't have the parchment paper. Yep. And now, while it's still warm, you're going to flip it out onto the powdered sugar. Okay. Next, you take away parchment paper. Now this is the fun part. This is where it gets the roll that's going to make it look like a log. You start at one end, and you want to tightly roll it up. Okay, now you let it cool for 1 hour and 15 minutes. So I have another Yule log that's already been cooling. And what happens is you unwrap it, just real carefully. And that cream filling we made is going to go right inside of it. So I'm going to back it up a little bit. Back up. Transfer it to your serving platter. Like this. And then I didn't put it exactly in the center of the platter because what you do next is you cut off a little piece slightly at an angle. And then you come back around and you can attach it to the side so it looks like a tree. It just fits just like that. Also, I might trim off the edge just slightly, because it might ice a little bit better this way. The next thing you do is you're going to ice it. And to make the icing, you just put a cup of cream in a microwave-safe bowl. And then you're going to microwave it until it's boiling. So now, while it's still boiling, you're gonna pour 2 cups of chocolate chips in there. My Aunt Sue says to always get good quality chocolate chips, and it makes a difference. You can use whatever you want. I'm using Ghirardelli. And you're just gonna start stirring. And it's gonna start melting. While that's starting to melt, I'm gonna add 2 tablespoons of corn syrup. So you stir constantly, and then you let it sit for 3 minutes before you add the vanilla. So after it's sat for about 3 minutes, then you're gonna add half of a teaspoon of vanilla at the very end. Okay, next we put it in the refrigerator for 1 hour and 15 minutes. And from the magic of television, I have this one all ready for us. So now we apply our bark to our Yule log or our Georgia pine log. This is different. Normally I work with a buttercream frosting, and this spreads so differently. So this is the next part. Now that you have the icing on, you want to make it look more like a tree. So you get a fork and you just drag it through the icing, and this is what makes it look bark-like. So there's all kinds of ways to decorate your Yule log cake. Some people put mushrooms out of marshmallows growing along the sides. Some people put little elf creatures. One thing that I like to do, just because I like pistachios, is to put pistachios on the side to look kind of like moss growing on the side of the tree. So I'm gonna shell these pistachios and then put them in the chopper. So now you can just sprinkle them on. If you think maybe moss is only growing on one side of your tree, stick it to one side. And the very last step is my favorite part. You make it snow. Finished cooking the Yule log, and it's time to eat it. Lucky for me, my husband Trip came home, and so he's gonna get to try a slice and tell me how this year's turned out. All right, Trip, I am done with the Yule log.
All right.
And we will see what this tastes like. All right, let's give it a try.
Can't wait.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Cheers. It's good.
That's fantastic.
Tastes
Best
like
one
Christmas
yet.
time.
Thank you again to our sponsor, Northwestern Mutual Eves Financial Group.